Good morning, everybody here in the sanctuary. Hello, live streamers. My name is Alex Taylor. I'm a licensed spiritual practitioner here. And before we take a little time to go within, just take a look around and maybe select 3 or 4 things that you're grateful for. No need to say anything, but just kind of look around and take inventory of this beautiful morning and this beautiful sanctuary. So just take a short time to do that. And you as well on live stream. And from that place of gratitude and beauty and joy within and without, let's take a moment to give thanks for this morning, give thanks for one another, give thanks for this community as we gather on Sunday morning and get rejuvenated, replenished, and knowing that Spirit is within us, surrounding us, and guiding us through this day and all the days to follow. And I give thanks for each person here. I give thanks for Reverend John's message. I give thanks for RL and Max and their beautiful words and music, and Lennon for live stream. And I know that there are kids in the back with Mac. And what a wonderful, wonderful way to start a brand new day with possibilities and opportunities, as together we say, and so it is. And I selected a reading today from our February Science of Mind magazine that just arrived yesterday, and it caught my eye. And it is called From Wonderment to Self-Realization, 3 Ways to Create a Sense of Wonder and Follow Your Right Path. And it's written by Swati Singh. And it starts with an Albert Einstein quote: "One cannot help but be in awe when he contemplates the mysteries of eternity, of life, of the marvelous structure of reality. It is enough if one tries merely to comprehend a little of this mystery every day. Never lose holy curiosity. Nurturing curiosity makes us open to new experiences and sharpens our minds and our potential. It is the fuel behind scientific discoveries and innovations. Creative thought, too, stems from being curious about every aspect of life. This same wonderment can help us in our spiritual journey as well. There are 3 aspects to this sense of wonder that guide us to our path. The first one is the right direction. Curiosity serves the larger good of our own self. Our energies need to focus less on judging and more on finding the wonderment in life's little things, the synchronicities, the working of the universe, the magic of gratefulness, the lesson of contentment, and the gift of introspection. Existentialism will cease to become a burden, but a door to go deeper within when we choose our path. And number 2 is the light self. On this path of wonderment, we may find several different answers to our questions. While this may appear confusing at first, the haze lifts when we realize the act of wonder simply implies, I don't know, allowing our mind to be free of any biases towards the answers that may follow. There should be no weight of ego that lives in the illusion of knowing everything. The aim is not to be the most intellectual person or the one who has all the answers. The goal is to reintroduce that sense of wonderment that you had as a child. With knowledge, our ability to be amazed shouldn't die away. The unknowable, the unanswerable things evoke wonderment. Don't be in a hurry to reach for answers. Let there be no answers. Let there just be wonderment. And number 3 is the nature way. A sense of wonderment requires attention to the nature all around you. How would wonder develop if there is no time to pause and reflect? How would green trees evoke joy if chlorophyll closed your mind? Allow life to pass in mindful moments instead of rushing like a speeding train, watching everything disappear in a flash. Let life's little things overwhelm you. the leaves falling in autumn, that pebble making ripples in the water, the birds singing in the spring, the bees falling asleep inside the flower, the patterns of the stars, the phases of the moon. All of these things can spark wonder if you allow yourself to witness the moment fully without any distractions and merge together with it. Introspection of our own behavior, acts, intentions, and purpose in life creates self-realization. That journey requires us to knock on the doors of the inner world. It can happen when our holy curiosity sharpens our senses enough to experience the awe of this miraculous life that we live. May we find hidden wonders every day. And now we are going to do our affirmation together, which is in red on the insert. And we'll say it together. I release what no longer serves me in order to make room for something amazing. All right.
Thanks, Alex. Good morning, everyone. A thought of the day. I thought I'd talk about chicken soup. I made a really great chicken soup recently. Lots of ginger and lots of little red pepper flake and some things that really sort of woke up the ingredients. Lots of veggies from like bok choy to spinach and some fresh basil. Sort of all the greens that were in the house went into the chicken soup. And at the end, a little lemon just to make sure that things could get back to some of their original flavors and add to the soup. But here's what I thought about along the way. I realized with most of the ingredients that I put into the chicken soup, including the chicken thighs, there was some process of removing part of that didn't need to go into the soup. I peeled the onions because the onion skins didn't need to go into the soup. I cleaned the carrots up. I cleaned up the chicken. There were parts that moved to the side and they could have another purpose, but they weren't part of the chicken soup. And had I taken all those things and put it into the chicken soup, I may not have found it quite as delightful. So it's good that I did that. But that started me thinking about all the other stuff in life. And then our affirmation this month. There are things that we can let go of. There are things from our past that we can let go of part of. We don't have to let go of all of it. We're in transition times right now. There are things that are shifting. And just because we let go of something doesn't mean that we need to let go of all the experiences around it. Don't you get frustrated like when a favorite utensil finally is done? The hand's going, because you know exactly how it feels, you know exactly what it does, but it's served its life now, and it's time for it to have a rest, and it's time to go buy a new, like potato peeler. But I like my old one. But just because I let go of it doesn't mean that I don't get to peel potatoes anymore. And it doesn't mean that I don't have some memories that are attached to that I can still hold on to. Right? All because of chicken soup, and the soup turned out really good. Maybe because I was mindful while I was making the soup. I don't know. That has nothing to do that I can find a direct connection to the song that I want to sing for you this morning. But anyway, maybe make some soup this week. Spend some time with it. I'm trying to be more mindful. Working on it. Me too.
They're going to rush the stage before we know it.
Bring it on!
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone at home and live stream. Let's start off by talking about bat signals. Does anyone know what I'm talking about?
From chicken soup to bat signals. Not a bad one.
Well, you should know because Batman used to live here. Remember? So do you remember either the movies or the old 1960s TV show? When someone wanted assistance or support, you turned on the bat signal, and it would be there in the clouds, and I guess there had to be clouds or the bat signal would just not land on anything. So do you remember that kind of just a little bit? It was mentioned in a class that some of us took yesterday, youth and family class, and talking about a new way or a different way of visualizing an intention and setting an intention for life. And this is in January, we're talking a lot about intentions and the new and inviting to new things in. And to think of it that sometimes with intentions, we feel that there's so much that we have to do. And yes, we live in a physical world. There's physical steps that we have to take at some point. But at first, it's just saying, I am available. Here I am. You know, I am available to receive, to have inspiration, to be shown a different way intellectually that I have not seen a certain way before, that I'm here, I'm available, I acknowledge, and I am open for business to accept support. Isn't that a great way to think about setting intention? It's like, I'm ready. I think sometimes when we think of setting intentions, I'm doing it on my own here, I'm in my private little dark corner, and I might write it down a little bit or call someone up and share with it, but just think that, no, I'm putting this out into the world, sending out the bat signal. I am open here. I'm expecting this to happen, sort of thing. And so that can fall in with, to kind of remind you of what we started off last week of, we're commemorating, participating in the Feast for the Soul, which is a 40-day commemoration to encourage spiritual practice, especially for people that have trouble doing it, to say, I'm going to do this for 40 days, regardless of what that spiritual practice looks like, and see if you can start a new intention or a way of being. We have an online 15-minute intention you can join, meditation from 9 to 9:15 on live stream. You can join us every day from Monday through Saturday, and then on Sunday mornings we have in-person live here 8:30 to 9. So, and in that last week, I invited you, so I'm just going to remind you what your homework is. What would you like to invite in your life? Now, a lot of times we think that we have to be on the verge of catastrophe to set an intention. It's like, oh my God, or you're at a major life turning point of changing careers, or getting married, or getting divorced, or it has to be something huge and big, and I really need to get out multiple bat signals, sort of thing. It doesn't have to be that. And in fact, I would suggest that you back away from an event type of thing of, oh, I have to find this, do this, or get this, and ask yourself, and again, this is your homework for this 40 days, we're just reminding you, whatever that thing might be, and it might be very subtle, what does it represent to you? What spiritual quality does it invite into your life? And that could be something like peace or joy or unconditional love, that you're okay if it shows up anywhere, but that one quality you would like. So if you haven't given it much thought this week, because by the time you're out here, you're at a brunch and you forgot what I talked about, remember it now. What would you like in this period, this 40 days, to invite in your life? And now, I just love this. And you're sending out the bat signal. And just kind of, I love how spiritual practice works as an experiment. Okay, I'm going to do this and see what happens. And so I'd like to invite you to do that. Send out the bat signal for whatever that quality is. And again, be okay that it shows up in any form. Be open to a new, different form, because that's often how growth happens. It's like, ooh, I didn't see it coming through that, but I guess it's okay. It's new. I'm open to it. So in that, I just want to kind of go back to one of our intentions as a spiritual community that I want to continually invite us to be part of. And it's amazing how, after quite some time of intentional thinking and bat signaling, how things start to happen. So as I said yesterday, some of us were on an online Zoom workshop, a 4-week workshop on youth and family programs. We have been setting for months now, very intentionally, of how are we going to open ourselves up to rebooting this. And this is a common theme in many centers, faith communities, post-COVID, like, where did the kids go? Oh, they're so old now, they're not in a kids program. They're bigger. What happened to them? They grew up, kind of thing. And we've had cycles of youth programs here that have been great. But it's so funny how it's worked out for us here that we'll seem like we have this like new crop of kids, like 8 or to 12 of them, and they all get older at the same time, and they disappear, and we're like, again, like, oh. But we never figured out how to keep the whole thing going. But here we are again, and we were talking yesterday about bat signal intentions, because most people in this workshop online, there was about 20 of us, were in the same thing of, how do we relaunch this again? And even talking about how in some communities, again, the kids have gotten older, they've disappeared, and what do you do? And do you just start having classes and have a teacher sit back there who's getting paid and just hope kids will come up someday? And actually, that's the last time we rebooted, that's what we did. And remember Renoir for a few weeks there, she's just like, this is easy money, I'm just sitting here, you know, kind of thing. But there is that intentionality about it, and here's how things start to happen. I don't think we have ever planned as well as we have before in a youth and family program. I mean, talking about it for a long period of time in this great class that we're taking, some of us are taking together. We have a great teacher. And of course, it's funny, you know, it's Mac, and he's my partner. And you know how it's funny with your partners, how you need to take your place out of things certain times? Like, I knew he was the best choice for a long time, but I couldn't be the one to tell him that. You know how it is? You have to, like, you know, like when you have cats, it has to be their idea. You know, it has to be their idea. And it's like, oh, gee, what a great idea you had. I just think we should consider that, you know. And it was funny. There's a lot of backstory with that, but we won't go into that. And slowly, some kids are starting to show up. Another thing we're doing in youth and family that, again, the bat signal. Someone contacted me that in the Valley, there's someone that is starting a new chapter of PFLAG. Does everyone know what that is? It's a support group for families with LGBT plus kids in it. And so it's support for the families to get support from each other, support for kids who may feel that they're out of sorts with other kids their age. And we are gifting them our space to meet. So not necessarily they're here on Sunday mornings, but it's just you have youth and family happening in the building in any way that you can, in ways that you didn't imagine. So again, the bat signal. Who knew that a PFLAG group would open, and who knew that I would get an email, and who knew that we would say, you know, that would be a great idea to be supportive of that. So that's how bat signal intentionality works. Things start to show up in ways that you didn't expect or had no idea even existed. And that's how the ball starts to roll. And you just keep with your intentionality. And it's funny, even back to, we discussed in the class yesterday, some places having still no kids, and like, well, what do? You have teachers just show up. But I thought of an analogy of a colleague of mine, and talking about how do you start a faith community or center? Kind of the bare bones of when you can charter a center with Center of Spiritual Living, you have to have 50 people who are saying, yes, I'll be members and will be the core group of this. And a friend of mine says, well, how do you think that happens? Do you think there's just 50 people on the sidewalk and they look at each other one day and go, gee, do you want to start a faith community? Just no, it starts with intentionality. It starts with bringing interested parties together, and it's just amazing how that energy grows. So again, it's another form of the bat signal, and that's how it evolves into something like this or something similar. So today, that was a big kind of lead up to what I'm talking to today. Since we are talking about intention and how do we invite things into our life, we often think about how am I going to get something from over there, over here, don't we? It's like, I don't have this, I see it over there, let's try to bring it over here. One of the most significant things that we can do as this process is first and foremost acknowledge and accept what is already here. So we don't often go to that step when we think there's things that I want, need, require. We can, in our consciousness, see ourselves lacking in some way. And yes, it's good to invite stuff in, but one of the most ineffective ways of inviting things in is to do it on a platform of believing that you are in desperate lack in many ways. So the first thing to do is to begin to the process of acceptance and acknowledging what is. And acceptance, I don't mean that this is how it is forever. It's like, this is what it is now, and it is my springboard. And to acknowledge what, even just like Alex was doing today, many of us know this room really well. We are used to this amazing view and have lost sight of how amazing it is. So to just say, let's just look at what we have here. It's kind of amazing. And sometimes even in our own homes, and we're just like, oh, things are going wrong, and I've got the flu, or my job, and we get away from acknowledging and recognizing what is amazing already. In fact, I truly believe that the only way to get somewhere else is to be totally in awe where you are, even with what appears to be negative things in your life. In fact, big lesson for me when I finished the school of ministry, and there was about a 2.5 year period before I arrived here. And I don't need to go in the story again, but so many things happened that I didn't think were supposed to happen. And the thing that got me here was finding the ability to acknowledge and be grateful for that odd situation that I had found myself into. And if I look back to myself then, the one emotional thing in my mind was always of, oh my God, how did this happen? And as I look back now, it's like how amazing it was that the support that I had no idea that was there showed up. It's funny, I don't think of it as a frustrating period anytime. I think of it as a miraculous time in my life. How people I didn't know or had just met came and formed a new nucleus of life for me. So, if there's some things you think you want to exit in your life, that's good. But let's start with, let's acknowledge how amazing it is now. I wrote a bit in my blog this week of, has anyone seen either of the Avatar movies? No, you're like, what's that? I've never heard of that. First he's talking about Batman, and now he's talking about science fiction movies. Basically, it's a sci-fi movie. It takes place on an alien planet, and there's this whole different civilization, and of course, drama and trauma happens and all that sort of thing. But what's interesting about this movie is that it has some undercurrents of spirituality that actually you could find in the philosophy that we teach. And the one thing that I love about both movies is this practice of acknowledgement. So let's say you are having a difficult moment or period of your life, and you're just like all over the place. Someone might just kind of like take you by the shoulders and say, and these are the words they say, I see you, I acknowledge you, I recognize the wholeness that is within you, and basically the unspoken message is that I know you can make it through this difficult moment. And it's just this larger acknowledgement. And the way that it happened in the movie I saw recently with that, kind of the drama between a father and a teenage son, but they're in blue alien bodies, if you could, make the switch here. And the son is like the one that always gets into trouble kind of son. And the one like, oh, I can't believe you did this again. I mean, kind of deal. But he started to do some really great things that nobody acknowledged because he was like the son that always messed up. And kind of a special moment in the movie when the father kind of goes, oh my gosh, you were actually doing all these amazing things, and I wasn't acknowledging it. In fact, I was just like sweeping it over to the side there because I thought you had no worth, and that was the part of the movie. He says, I see you, I acknowledge you, you were amazing. So part of that is, what I love for that part of the movie is to do that in our lives. That we may have judged so many areas of it as not being up to what we want, but to see it again, see it anew. Acknowledge the amazing things that are there and that you are going to build upon it. But the next step of this, as I wrote on my blog this week, it takes us to a deeper level of acknowledgement and gratitude. So gratitude is a wonderful practice, and we often see it as a response when we see or experience something we want to or like. In a sense, as we were invited to be grateful this morning, we just were grateful for things we wanted to be here. Weren't we? You know, we looked at the snow, and we looked at this building, and we looked at the great color of the wall that Karen painted here, and in the foyer, and go, isn't this great and wonderful and nice? And so we like it, so we're grateful for it. But the question is, can you be grateful for the larger experience in your life, even that which we would even label as traumatic? I came across a really interesting snippet of an interview with Stephen Colbert. Do we know who Stephen Colbert is? I guess I can't just throw names out of here. He is a comedian. And I have found that comedians, we don't often give them their acknowledgement of how deep a people that they can be. We just think they're funny. And they are funny. But they've got some deeper wells going on there. And in this interview with Anderson Cooper, he was talking about a plane crash when he was 10 that killed his father and 2 brothers. And let me just read some of the things of what he said. It said, and from here, it said, he stated that he had to learn to love the thing that he most wished had not happened, and came to a life-changing realization that was expressed in this following quote. It says, it is a gift to exist, and with existence comes suffering. I don't want it to have happened, but if you aren't grateful for your life, then you have to be grateful. But if you are grateful for your life, you have to be grateful for all of it. You can't pick and choose what you are grateful for. Doesn't that feel a little uncomfortable almost a little bit? Because I don't want to tell you that I'm like an expert at this, but it was such an interesting thing is that you don't get to pick and choose what you're grateful for, that you have to look at the totality of it, that we do teach in a sense a concept of oneness, and it is all connected. So that which we label as bad or even traumatic is not disconnected from who we are and what we have had experienced. It has contributed to some way. And I think most of us can probably do that when we look in the rearview mirror. We can look back 10, 20, 30 years and say there is this difficult, even traumatic event, but yet we can see how that put us on a completely different path of one that we like and that we truly are grateful for, and that probably may not have happened if it wasn't for that thing that we didn't like. So maybe that's a little bit easier of a path to say, well, I can be grateful for the whole package in a sense because I see how it shifted me to something else. And certainly we have all had instances where we're like, I am so grateful I dodged that bullet. Like, oh, thank God I didn't get that job. Thank God I didn't marry that person. Thank goodness I didn't move to that town. And it was like, whew, why did I want it so badly then? I can't even imagine wanting that thing. It's like, oh, thank God. But to even now, wherever you are in your life, to have a sense of gratitude for the whole thing, even though there are things that are difficult. Some days that might seem easier than others. And I think some days, especially if something is a hurt is fresh, it's hard to say that, oh yeah, I'm just going to be grateful for this. No, I wouldn't say you to maybe entertain that on something that is new and fresh, but especially as things start to have some distance from us, to see how it falls into the bigger picture. I know, it's spiritual practice is not always easy, is it? To me, this is a spiritual practice too, in a sense, as he says, that we don't get to choose what we're grateful for, that we have to accept the whole thing. As I was, reading this with Stephen Colbert, and of course, part of you, and you think, gosh, a kid, 10-year-old, to lose his whole family. I mean, that is heartbreaking. And it made me think of a good friend of mine who passed a few years ago, and I brought her up a few times over the years. And what made me think of her is that she had a similar experience of great losses. And she was about 10. She had a brother and sister. Her mom and dad were going to have, instead of a date night, a date day. They were both accomplished sailors at sailing. They went sailing. They were both accomplished sailors. They were both excellent swimmers. They had an accident, and they both drowned. And many times, you just told me that you're still trying to make sense of this, of how obviously that completely changed the direction of her life. And she was someone I met in the school ministry. We had every class together, anything ministerial we had together. We were supportive, like when we graduated together, had big moments together. And so during that time, you really get to talk to someone. And she could see that, and trying to balance that sense of still childhood trauma, and how she could see how it put her in this direction of life. But having to be grateful for it all was just, she had to do it in a much bigger way. And I think all of us that knew her. First of all, like I said, she lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We were going to the School of Ministry in Los Angeles, and at that time, a third of the material was distant. The rest had to be in person. Of course, this was in the late 90s. Distance means, this is funny, you're going to laugh, they mailed us the cassette tapes to listen to. I finally threw those cassette tapes away like 3 years ago because I have nothing to play a cassette tape on. And they were really, I was holding on to because some of them were really good. But you know how they're like, they go like this, and you know, what do you do with them? And you get the pencil, and you're cutting them. And I thought, no, I need to get rid of these. But we have this great relationship. She would stay with us sometimes in my spare bedroom, and she would come to class and all that. And we became roommate partners of things like conventions. If there were no spouses or partners involved, we would be sharing a room together. And at least one night of that period at a conference, we would literally laugh ourselves to sleep. It was, think more teenage slumber party is basically what we had. I mean, we just really had this great close bond, and so a lot of times when like a conference or retreats coming up, people, I just can't wait to elevate myself. We were like, I can't wait to talk. We get in our PJs and have chips and stay up until 3 o'clock in the morning, and that was really like the highlight of this. And like I said, we support for each other in ministry for many years. And then she got sick. She got a form of cancer that I was not familiar with. And it led her to make a decision about her treatment that I don't think I could make. She had some sort of bone cancer in her face. And kind of the Hail Mary pass of treatment was to remove a good portion of her face, and including her right eye. And there would be a year of surgeries to put her face back together, that they would, of course, close things up. And during that whole year, we, of course, talked incessantly on the phone, but I didn't see her. I mean, her job was to physically heal. She was going to a special hospital in Texas for all these treatments. And like I said, I can't even imagine what she went through, quite frankly. I mean, just the fact, cut off my leg, but don't cut off my face. You know what I mean? I mean, there's something, that just touches us to think that not only our identity, but how you face the world. And she would even tell me that, they'd go to a restaurant and she's in the middle of this and people would just stare at her and I can't even imagine. But she went through her year of healing, and we're coming up to a February convention in Orlando, Florida, and she's ready to come, and we're going to be roommates. And I can't tell you how excited I was. And it was really, and I had no idea what it would be. And it was interesting, she had, of course, all that. I had some significant life changes myself, certainly not like hers, but it was like we needed some slumber party time to talk this over. And it was interesting, as we were talking on the phone leading up to this, part of our greatest anxiety was that we were going to have to tell both our stories multiple times. Isn't that some part of the thing? In fact, we came up with this fantasy that we would both create flyers and just stand out in front of the hotel and just hand them out. Like, this is all you're going to get. Here's the flyer. We don't want to talk about it. here's the flyer. It'll answer all your questions. You know, it's a Q&A. It's just funny. That's how our mind worked. And so basically how this was going to run, it takes a long time to get from here to Orlando, Florida. I mean, I think it was 3 flights. It wasn't easy. It was easier for her from Albuquerque. She was going to arrive there early evening. I wasn't going to arrive until like 1 o'clock in the morning. I know. But I said, okay, you know, we're used to rooming together. I said, I'll be quiet as possible. I'll just bring my suitcase right into the bathroom. I'll pull out my toothbrush, put in my PJs, and just kind of, you know, go to bed and, you know, just put your earplugs in. She always had earplugs because I snore. So I said, just put your, you know, double earplug yourself and it'll be okay and we'll talk in the morning. So I did that, but she was awake and she was ready to talk. But here was the interesting thing. It was like we wanted to hold on to the past just a little bit. We didn't talk about her surgeries. We didn't talk about my life changes. We gossiped. That's what we did. We gossiped. We talked about who we were going to see, what was going to happen, and we were planning a trip to Disney World, and that's what we were talking about. But then, you know, we literally laughed ourselves to sleep. But the next morning, of course, with the sun comes the reveal, and he says, okay, this is how I look now. And, you know, after doing that, this is how I am now after this thing. And I have to say that she looked amazing. I mean, there was a bit of, it was off a bit, but you wouldn't pass her on the street and go, oh my God, what happened to you? I mean, if you knew her, you'd know that something was off, and her right eye had actually been the lid surgically closed. And she always wore kind of the big glasses anyway. She had kind of a darkened lens. And Jenny had this amazing head of hair that just had a life of its own, but always looked good. Don't you kind of hate people, friends like that? Like, they come out of the pool and it's like, you look great. But anyways, but it's this kind of thing, and so it kind of cascaded over here a little bit, but it wasn't obvious that she was trying to cover it, but it looked great. But the amazing thing is, and this was kind of the consensus of everyone who experienced her those 4 days, it was like she was walking on clouds. It was like she had become this ascended master spiritually. She literally radiated light. That I know that there were people that had told me later that they had every intention of, you know, sometimes people get like sloppy in their grief for you. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. But it's just like, oh my God, who are you kind of thing. I mean, it was just this amazing presence that she became, and not that she suddenly was just spouting things like from the New Testament or anything, but it was just her presence had the ability to transform people. That's all I can say. Her presence had the ability to transform people. There's nothing she said, nothing that she necessarily did, but there was something about her experience that put her in a place that you would say, I don't know what you have, but I want some of it. So, when I say you have to be grateful for all of it, so if you were given the choice that you would have to experience what she did, but knowing that you could also be in an elevated sense of consciousness like she would, what would your choice be? I still don't know if I could choose it. But there was such an experience spontaneously of everyone that knew and loved her, that of being grateful for everything, even this big mess that we didn't want her to experience. I mean, it really was this interesting thing, and I didn't really put together the verbiage of like Stephen Colbert to say, you don't have a choice of what to be grateful for, you have to have the whole package. And in a sense, I kind of get it from that experience. And actually, she was completely healthy for about another year or so, and then she got sick again and she did pass. So that was the last time I saw her. I mean, of course, we talked on phones all the time. But here was even a great thing that I can be grateful for. About 5 years previous, the convention for CSL had been in Anaheim, and a group of us went to Disneyland. And so we were kind of planning on like doing a repeat of it. And so it was like the next morning, or a couple days, you know. So So we're going to get the group together, go to Disneyland or Disney World. And she just looked at me and says, maybe it's just you and me. And it was great. It was great, actually. So be grateful for the whole package. That's the strongest way you can do your bat signal. To say, I'm in. I'm in for it all. I'm not going to filter this out. I'm in for it all. And I know that there is an intelligence in the universe that knows exactly how it should show up through me and as me. And I know there's a certain level that I'm aware of that. And part of that is saying, I give myself over to it. I just let it happen. I'm part of it. And when you do so, I do know amazing things will happen that you didn't think were possible. So, let's just pray. I'm done. So let's start with that process. Let us be grateful for everything. Let us be grateful for the difficult stuff, the painful stuff, the ugly stuff, the things that at this point in time we can never imagine ourselves understanding, embracing, or accepting. Let's just make room for that. Maybe we're not ready yet, but let's make room for it, and let's be grateful for everything. Because it's such a mixed bag. One thing is dependent on the other, so let's just accept it all. And in that acceptance, let us also accept complete and utter freedom to receive. We're putting no conditions on anything anymore. We're just saying, I am here, I am available, I am open to receive, I am open to give. I am open. I don't judge it anymore. I am just open. And I put that signal out into the universe and allow my life to move forward. So I also express our gratitude for that. Sight unseen, we're grateful. And as we accept and are grateful and thankful, we release attachment to how it all needs to show up. We let it go. We release it into the heart and mind and spirit. We just let it